Have you ever thought about how the Nordics are working with sports innovation? My name is Ole Martin, and I'm the founder and CEO of Sporting Global. And today we're having a great episode with Carsten. He's the founder of Sports Lab Copenhagen, and we're going to talk a lot about his experience alongside with the Nordic Innovation Summit happening August 26th. Stay tuned right after this. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today I'm here with Carsten, all the way from my friendly neighborhood country, Denmark. How are you, Carsten? How's life and the final preparations before the big summit coming up?
Hi Ola, nice to see you again. And I'm doing fine. Just back from a summer break here in Denmark, and we've had some really nice weather. And the summit is approaching, so we're quite busy.
I can imagine. It's always good getting those few days off. Just right before the rush is happening, you get some new energy, some fresh air, I guess. And you were saying you went to tiny island between Sweden and Denmark as well. What kind of island is this? What's how do you opportunity?
There's lots of islands in Denmark. Same, I think, in Norway and Sweden. There's a lot of archipels, but we have a few nice ones. And the first one to an island called Læsø between Sweden and Denmark. It's
nice.
Very well known for the salt. They have a lot of salt there, but it's a beautiful.
Right, that makes sense. Did you buy some salsa or something that you could have?
Of course.
We have a favorite. A famous brand salt brand here in Norway as well, really local to where I am, and they've been booming, so it's kind of cool how these things come up. But obviously we're here today to talk a little bit about the Nordic Innovation Summit, a little bit about, of course, your experiences as well. And there's a lot of young people kind of tuning in here, listening, kind of getting some insight, getting some tips, and I guess before we dive into obviously the summit itself, I think it would be cool if you could just give us an idea of how did your journey in the sport industry begin?
With pleasure. My background is so I studied business. Boring, like a lot of people, but I always wanted to work in sports.
Right.
And but at the time, that was the early 90s, and sport was still it's not what it was today. There was a couple big companies, IMG and ISL were the two big ones, and I applied to both of them, and they were like, yeah, thanks, but you need some experience.
Right.
So I had a bit of a more classic start of my career in finance and consulting, and from there I branched out into the more entertainment area. I worked for Disney, Walt Disney, nice. But on the consumer products business. So all the licensed products that you can buy which have Disney characters on them.
Yeah.
It was a booming industry at the time.
Right.
And that really helped me with the transition into sports, because going from Disney into a consulting role, I moved into a more marketing and commercial role. Mm-hmm. And in January 2001, I moved to Switzerland to work for an agency called ISL. ISL was one of the big two that I mentioned before.
Right.
They had all the Olympic rights, the FIFA rights, marketing, television, and all that. And they were .com booth, so they created a new media division where we had to launch FIFA World Cup.com and all that, and a lot of similar sites for other sports federations they had under contract. And pretty much it started from that's obviously 20 years ago, and from there it's just been a rock and roll journey. Moved from one event, one organization to another, worked in agencies, in front sports and media, international federations, in equestrian and rugby, and also for Swatch, and I've been doing a lot of things, but we could talk. That could be another podcast.
Yeah, I think we might have to dedicate an own episode for that. Just mapping through you can almost debate though, right? That these things are was part of your startup, like you part of your sports journey, in a sense, like especially in considering their involvement in sports these days, right? With like all the movies and the brands and like all the stuff involvement and in collaboration is there. But obviously now, like, fast forwarding into today's, situation in 2021, happen to found a few years back the sports lab in Copenhagen, and I guess, like, how did that idea come to life, and I guess, like, what are some of the challenges that the sports lab Copenhagen is solving?
Yeah, so the idea really came when I actually moved from Switzerland to Denmark, and that was for family reasons. I have my wife is Danish. We have our kids in school here.
Right.
And after 2 years in Switzerland, we thought it was time to make a move. And I also thought at the time that it was also a time for me to try something different in sports. And I had the idea that a lot of innovation comes from outside the traditional sports organizations. And sitting on the other side, I was marketing commercial director in these big sports organizations. You have people contacting you every week, telling you about the latest fan engagement platform or other technologies that you should use in your events. But it's very hard. First, you're very busy. You're usually under-resourced in a federation. It's very hard to cut through the clutter and see which one are the good ones you should work with.
Yeah, yeah.
And moving to Denmark, I started with working for a startup here in the health and sports sector, and I could see there was still an embryonic but very fast-growing sector. And I could, meeting a lot of investors and other startups, I saw that they all have the challenge of also connecting with the sports organization and understanding, what challenges do they have, how do they take decisions, what's the governance, etc.
Right.
So I thought, combining my experience of that world, my international network, I could help maybe grow the sector in Denmark and to a larger extent the Nordics. And so that was really the starting point. And yeah, that was around, I guess, 70, 80 startups in sports tech or sports innovation, because I think we have to go a bit broader than just tech.
Right.
The sports innovation in and around Copenhagen.
Yeah.
So we had a good fertile ground as well here, because Nordics are tech savvy countries. There's a high digital adoption, and a lot of things, a lot of good things that I could list about why it's good to a good place for a sports tech company here. And
for sure,
seeing other sectors like fintech and health tech, and there's other examples as well that have grown over the last years by organizing themselves in a cluster.
Right.
I thought, I want to give it a go and see if I can help that sector develop.
Yeah.
So that's how Sports Lab Copenhagen really started. We started with a physical hub. We wanted to get some startups together under one roof.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we create a place where it's natural to share experiences and knowledge, and from there grow the ecosystem around that. And that's pretty much what we did.
Right.
Connecting, as I said, the world of sports and startups, and creating that ecosystem. And then really that grew into a vision of developing a seamless pathway for the growth, or let's say the development of entrepreneurs in sports. So saying, how can we inspire and help students who are maybe interested in getting in that sector?
Right.
So how can we help them already when they are at the university, and then showing them as well that there's a structure that will help along the way, all the way to international scaling and becoming a
I mean, like, that's extremely important, though, if you think about it too, because I obviously, it's been like, the last few years, and maybe longer too, where it's been like a, enormous hype of, being an entrepreneur, being, having your own company, being like kind of like free, to do what you want. And then you sort of like, okay, well, I have my idea, I want to start, like, and then you kind of like, where's the structure around it, right? And so, like, having that frameworks and that sort of like elements quite early, I think it's very important also for like realizing, is this something that you want to do? Because as you know, I mean, like, just having a startup, being an entrepreneur, it's not for everyone, I think, but it's definitely a fun and challenging journey that you will learn a lot from.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's, as you said, it's showing that there's a possibility that, there's a sector that exists, that is growing, showing that to students. And we have, within the student incubation environments at the university, we're developing now with the three main universities in Denmark, sports vertical. That's one of the new things you'll hear about in the next months.
Yeah.
We actually have a kickoff workshop this week on that.
Nice.
But also, it's getting also investors aware that this is an interesting sector to get in. There's not enough investment going into this sector in the Nordics, but all of a sudden, I think you're probably noticing the same thing. I mean, this year everybody is like, "Oh, sports tech. That's an interesting one."
I mean, like, I feel like it almost had to happen at some point, though, if you think about it, because I mean, like almost everyone, I will almost debate that everyone has like some sort of relationship to sports, whether you're kind of like, directly like influence to it or not, you kind of sort of like have some sort of relationship to it, which is why I think it's once it sort of like reaches its peak in that sort of like openness, it's kind of like can relate a lot to like, I guess, the gaming and esport industry too, in terms of like something that people can relate to, right? Which is why you see the growth that you do.
I think that makes it also easy to have conversations and usually to get a meeting with somebody, because everybody can relate, and there's the rational business side of it, and then there's the emotional part, and everyone wants to somehow be part of it. But I think it's also now about showing about that beyond the emotional part, there's a real business, an interesting business. Yeah.
No, and I mean, like the business is there, right? And as the industry grows, like, and obviously with the pandemic too, like it just opened like a whole new world of opportunities in sports and sports tech. So there's definitely a lot of potential. But obviously, on 26th of August, you're gonna have the Nordic Innovation Summit is kicking off. What is this summit all about? I mean, like, I guess we kind of already been touching a little bit on it, but yeah, what is it all about, and how can people attend essentially on this for those that are listening, I guess?
So, I mean, this is one of the projects I've been working on for over a year, because it was actually supposed to be last summer, but because of the pandemic, we had to postpone. The reason it was going to be last summer is because it was going to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the University of Southern Denmark's Sports Science and Biomechanical department. And I've been developing a great relationship with them over the last 2 years, pretty much. And we're, as the things that I mentioned before, that we're doing with students and their innovation environment, and all that is happening. We have another big football innovation project with an football innovation center that we're building and designing at the moment.
Nice.
But so there's a lot of things going on with that university that's very progressive. And so the summit the idea was, how can we create an event where we bring together the academic side and the business side. And by the academic, I mean, researchers, students, and the business side, startups, corporates, but of course also sports organizations and NGOs that are involved in sport. How can we bring these people together and discuss, latest research, latest trends, and sort of inspire these groups to work closer together? I think that's really what we want to achieve with this summit. So it's a little bit different to a lot of other summits that you see, because there's the real research and the academic part, which you'll see as the red thread throughout the summit.
Right.
So really what we're doing here is that we have a number of tracks and topics that we can discuss about, but this is really what we're doing. And there'll be a physical part on the university campus in Odense, and there'll be also the possibility to attend online, so everyone can be part of it.
Well, that's always good though. Especially, I think it's we talked about it a little bit before the podcast started, like officially too. That it's still a lot of people, I think, that are just like they're so close to be able to like leave their country, do these kind of things, but it's just like maybe that final dose or like something missing to make it work. So having that dual I mean, like, as with that, of course, like it also creates like some extra challenges, because now it's not just a physical event, right? You also have to like do it digitally. So how is sort of like that bit been sort of like impacted, I guess, the structure of the conference of like, okay, now you have to do both.
Yeah, well, it's as you said, we initially wanted to do it only physically, and then we realized, that people are coming back from holiday now and trying to figure out, what's the status of the pandemic.
Right.
And you're in Norway. We have a keynote speaker from Norway, Anna Jøndal, who's going to make a really interesting keynote about her typology of sports innovation. And she has to quarantine. If she came, she would have to quarantine 10 days. So we said,
right.
It doesn't work. So we have to take that into consideration, and
Yeah.
that really prompted us to organize this, also the online. But yeah, the challenges, as you said, are a bit on the technical side. But nowadays, I think there's a lot of tried and tested solutions.
Right.
So, but we obviously we'd want as many people as possible to come to Odense, which is the hometown of Hans Christian Andersen. It's a very nice town in the middle of Denmark. It's only about an hour by train from Copenhagen, so it's not very far.
So if people are in Denmark, or in close by Sweden, like, or something like, where you can, if you can travel, you should physically be there, because there will be, a lot of people there, students, researchers, sport organization, physically being there as well. And if you can't, join digitally. And I guess, like, you mentioned one of the topics that are going to be covered from one of the key speakers from Norway, but what are some of the other key topics that people can discover during the summit?
Yeah, so we'll have Anna Jøndal, but we also have some other really interesting, you might have heard of some of them, keynote speakers. Marcus Aristides Kern, the founder of Fun with Balls, and also he's written a book about the future of sports. Currently, it's in German, but I heard there's an English translation on the way. And he's talking a lot about how you use sports innovation and technology to solve the health problems in the world, obesity and so forth. And he's got some very, very forward-looking ideas, and I think this is going to be a really interesting topic. Then Benjamin Penkert from Sports Tech X is also coming. They're coming physically, by the way, so it'd be great to have them with us to talk about also latest trends in sports tech, and also paint a bit the picture in the Nordics. And next to this keynote, we have 2 tracks. So the conference is going to be two parts. There'll be a first part, which is most of the morning and early afternoon, which is a more conference type with the keynotes. But then the 2 tracks, one will be on football, and one will be on more general sports innovation topics. But in both of these tracks, we have one common element, which is why we call ourselves a Nordic Sports Innovation Summit. It's not just because we're in the Nordics, but it's also, we want to show what's the Nordic approach to sports innovation. I think the Nordics have traditionally been really, really good at innovating in things like healthy lifestyle, making people physically active, well integrated and inclusive societies.
Right.
So these are topics that you will see in the panels, which will consist of researchers and businesses and sports organizations. So that, again, having that sort of mixed dialogue is what we're trying to achieve. And then the second part of the summit is going to be an innovation showcase and a student pitching competition.
Nice.
Which will happen simultaneously, and that's open to the general public. So we hope also for local people to come and attend, and students and so forth. So we'll have a lot of startups, a number of startups at least, that will come and showcase their innovation, that you can actually experience the things physically outside, for those who will be there.
well, that's great. And I guess, like, we're talking a little bit about, obviously, you've been mentioning a lot of the target groups, kind of like, you have the researchers, the academia side, and then of course like the sports organizations. But if you narrow it down a little bit into the students, and you sort of like mentioning, the student competitions, the student competition, pitch competition that is there, like, why don't you share a little bit about that, and also like how, maybe sports students from, I guess, abroad, can be involved somehow, into the summit.
Yeah. So you can of course register to the summit, you know, as a participant, as a delegate, and there it's you know, you go online on nsisummit.dk.
We'll put the link in the bio and share it and all this stuff.
There's a 50% discount for students, and so that's just to participate to the conference. And if you want to participate in the so the pitch competition is open to anyone that's in a university environment and that is either already an entrepreneur, maybe in a university incubation, or has an idea that has already developed into something a little bit formal. So
right.
You know, you have an idea, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to, you have this really great idea, and it's a good way for you to get experience in pitching and getting feedback from professionals, from a professional jury. So I encourage you, you know, even if you think you're not there yet, but you're still pretty advanced in your idea, that you can actually pitch with a few slides. I think that's a good opportunity. And then this pitching competition is supported by the Danish Football Federation and the Danish Football League.
Nice.
It doesn't have to be football, by the way, your idea, but it just happens to be. So there's also prizes for the finalists coming from them, and then the two finalists also get some free mentoring from the university and Sports Lab Copenhagen. So yeah, great opportunity, and you can pitch. We also allowing online pitching. So
even so there you go. You know, a lot of opportunities. Just go for it. When is the deadline for people to sign up? Both I guess in attendance, but also for the pitch competition, if there's any difference there.
Yeah. So the online registration for attending the event, I think is at the end of the week. But just keep an eye on the website, because I'm pushing always to keep that. You know, to try to get us close to the end of the event, but there's also some logistics.
Yeah, of course.
So that's why. The pitching competition, the deadline is actually today, but if you're hearing this podcast and you're not pitched yet, just give me a shout, write to me, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, we'll make sure as well, like from our side, we'll share, like, you know, the link and everything as well, and some insights of how we can sign up. But go for it, you know, grab the opportunity as well. We talk a lot about this in the podcast in Sporting Global, where, you know, at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of opportunities out there, but, you know, you have to grab it. You have to, you know, take the initiative. And if you have an idea, you know, or if you just want to, you know, listen to some great, you know, panels and some great, you know, insights, you know, from the Nordic, you know, from the Nordic innovation in sports, you know, then go check that out. And I guess, like, to sort of like wrap this up, and we talk, you know, a lot about, you know, true, you know, the event, the structure, like how people can attend, but we always like kind of like ask the question of, you know, what kind of tips do you have, you know, personally, for any student or professional that are sort of like looking into like a career in sports? And I guess, like, I guess you will have like some insights as well, because you kind of like come a little from, I guess, the outside in a sense, going in, and it's sort of like from your side, like, what are some of the key tips that you would recommend in today's situation?
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's a question where you often get, and I would say generally there's no one answer and one way to get into sports. That's 100%. The first thing. I've, you know, been working now in sports for over 20 years, and I've seen people coming from, you know, all sorts of pathways. So that's the first thing, is if you're not in sports now and you want to get into, you know, don't despair. There's a lot of ways to get into, and you don't have to get in right away after university. So I think maybe my first tip, and you heard a bit maybe that's also a bit linked to my experience, is that, you know, I started in finance, which is, you know, of course you can do finance in sports as well, and legal in sports. So my first tip is develop, you know, professional experience and skill that is an area that is relevant to sports.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, especially over the last, you know, 10 years or so, the sports sector has really professionalized and is really looking beyond people that have a passion for sports is looking for professional expertise.
Right.
And when I was recruiting, that's really that was, of course, it helps if you know a particular sport and you have a passion for it, but I would almost say that it comes secondary to the professional skills. So go out there, get a great experience in a startup, a company that you can sell in a sports organization after a few years, if you can't get directly into sports. There's also some good sports masters programs out there that have very good networks. So I think that's a great way to meet other people that have also want to work in sports, and they connect you with a lot of organizations. But then I think my last tip is, especially nowadays, and that's probably valid for everything, but build your network early on.
Yeah.
If you are in university, go and attend events, do internship in sports, be a voluntary work as a voluntary in sports organizations. There's so many sports, bigger and small organizations. And I think for someone recruiting in sports, that's the kind of thing you really look at is, has that person really done these things and has shown that they are really interested in, for example, if you want to work in sports events, that you are actually doing getting all the experience you can, and it's a fantastic way to just get to know people. It's a small family. Everybody. It
really is. It's a
small family, but everybody knows each other.
It's a big but small family.
Yeah.
No, but and finally as well, attend the Nordic Innovation Summit. Yeah. August 26th. August 26th. Sure. It's the day. With that, Carsten, I would like to thank you, so much for taking the time, for sharing a little bit about your story, and mostly about, of course, the summit coming up. A lot of exciting things there, and I wish you, of course, all the best with that. We'll be there, digitally, of course. And maybe if you'll do this, next year, I'll almost promise I'll be there physically. But as you know, a little bit challenging at the moment, but we'll support from our office here in Malta.
We're certainly thinking about a version 2.0 of the event, and thanks for having me here. And we're really looking forward as well to more things together in the future.
Absolutely, Carsten. Well, I don't know if you've seen some of the other podcasts that we do, but we always finish with some Norwegian. So I mean, from you living in Denmark, that might not be too hard, but we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means "see you later" in Norwegian, which I mean it's not too far from what the Danish says.
That's pretty much the same. Vi snakkes.
There you go.
That's my French accent.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Carsten. We'll talk soon, and thanks once again for taking the time.
Thanks, have a great day.
You too.